Good day, everyone. I'd like to welcome you back to Contemplating Catholicism. And today it has a lot to do with contemplating capitalism. There's a lot of angst in our culture here in America, and I believe around the world, when it comes to making enough money, to having enough to live on. And this angst means people are full of anxiety or insecurity when it comes to making a living. Today we are experiencing it here. We've had a lot of angst concerning the SNAP benefits, and we've had the work requirements that may be part of that now, and the anxiety of the working poor. I would consider myself, our family, as part of that, of the working poor. We've always been in that particular class. But there's a lot of anxiety today. Young people today, they struggle with trying to make a living, trying to buy a house. My daughter is a mortgage lender, a broker. And it takes a lot of money today to buy a house. And then if you get married and you want to have children, oh, many can't even think of that. It's way beyond their income level in our society, the way we have things arranged now. And now we have AI technology where many people, again, they're full of angst because their job is being replaced and the government being shut down and many people out of work as a result of that. And we have it not only on that level, but it's also on the higher level with our economist at the top. We used to be totally dependent, and the world was dependent on the petrodollar. No longer the case. Now we have an alternative currency with the BRIC nations, and our economists, they're up in arms what to do about it. We used to have an edge, but we're losing our edge. And now we have, of course, cryptocurrency, and we have angst today concerning socialism. New York City. Many people are concerned about socialism taking over in America. And we also have those who want to make America great again, and it seems to be benefiting a few. But those of us who are bottom dwellers, I'm not sure that it's the case. My wife and I are not immune to this angst that people are feeling. We feel it. We live on a very limited amount of Social Security. And, you know, I was a pastor much of my life, and my wife was at home most of the time, raising children. Not a lot of money to be made, of course, in pastoring. It's very rewarding in many ways, but I would like to say that we participate in the full amount of Social Security. I think the average for a couple today, the average amount of Social Security is $3,800 a month for a couple. And that sounds pretty good because, well, our average Social Security is much less than that. And we have a certain amount of anxiety that goes along with that. Honestly, we looked into maybe moving to a different country where our Social Security benefits would go farther. I know we recently got our tax bill, and it's going to take over a month of our Social Security just to pay the tax bill, let alone utilities and let alone insurance and other things. And some of those videos that you see are pretty enticing until you look at some of the downside of it. And one of the big downsides is that the average wage in many of these countries is like a quarter of what the average couple might make here. And of course you can live higher, but what are you doing to the rest of their economy if we dump all this money there, and it makes those who are trying to live in that economy struggle all the more because expats are taking over? One of the big reasons we thought, well, we're going to sweat it out here. We're going to sweat it out. Albania sounds good in some ways, and so does Ecuador and Portugal and other places in Asia. They make it look good, but then you talk to expats too, and they struggle after a while. So we have this increasing anxiety. It wasn't always that way in America. I'm old enough to know from experience, when I graduated in 1974, the average wage in 1974 in America was $3.39 an hour, the average wage. And you think, wow, $3.39 an hour, how could you do it? Well, if you were part of a unionized job, you really lived high off the hog, because the average wage for a unionized job at that time was $6.34. $6. I remember, boy, when I graduated from high school, union people making over $6 an hour. That was a lot of money. But the fact is, that money went a lot further in those days than what it does now. Today, the comparable wages are $16.86 for a factory worker, not a non-unionized factory worker, $16.86. If you're unionized, it's $33.86. Let me just suggest this to you. That $16.86 doesn't go nearly as far as what our $3.39 went in 1974. In fact, you could graduate from high school, get a job at a factory, get married, have some children, have your wife at home, and go on vacation and buy a used car. Well, what happened? I can tell you what happened. Capitalism began to fall apart. What happened was greed became more and more rampant. And because of that, the wealth that used to be in the lower middle class and in the middle class and even in the lower class got sucked up to the upper class. Something went wrong. And it doesn't take an economist to tell you that there's something wrong with what we're experiencing here in America now. We struggle. We bottom dwellers, we struggle. Young couples struggle. Just thinking of getting married for men is, for many, is not even in a question. They can't get married. They're living at home with mom and dad. They can't afford rent. They can't afford a house. And think about a young couple that want to have children. And both of them have to be wage earners to come anywhere close to making it, because the average starter home in South Carolina, a starter home is $287,000. And because of that, it takes $68,900 to qualify for that home. The payment is over $2,000 a month. And you're going to live on that kind of income and buy a house? And then if you have to have child care, it costs you $666 a month for an infant, a little bit less than that if you have a toddler, and preschool costs $540. How do you do it? People, they have this angst. They realize that there's something wrong. There's something wrong here. This capitalism thing that was working well, I believe, at one time, isn't working so well for the majority of Americans anymore. So, what's the solution? I'm all for solutions. There has to be some solutions. This economy is collapsing on itself, particularly for those who are vulnerable, for those who are just one catastrophe away from being homeless. My wife and I thought of that. We thought we've been blessed being able to at least own a home, and that's been a blessing. We don't make payments. If we had to make a payment on a house or pay rent, we would be homeless. One of the greatest assets that the Lord has provided us with is our home. But many can't afford to even get into a home to begin with to be able to build any equity. So what's the solution? One thing is for sure, the solution is not in socialism, where the government takes over everything, where the government takes over personal property, where the government takes over the economy. I mean, they can't do anything right now. They can't even agree with each other to avoid this shutdown. And we expect that they're going to take over everything in the name of socialism? No, that's not going to work. This laissez-faire socialism doesn't work. When we've allowed it to kind of function on its own apart from any restraints and without any kind of constraint of greed, we've seen what's happened. It's gone to the top. We have the investor class who are very happy about how things are going because they're fine. Their family's fine. It's coming in hand over fist. But for most people in America, it's not working. This is a recipe for disaster in a country. It's a recipe for revolt. It's a recipe for chaos on a grand level if we don't come up with some solutions that help everyone, not just the upper class. I believe there are some solutions, and I believe that they're found in Catholic social teaching. There's a few documents that I want to look at, and I'll just briefly introduce one of them today. And this particular document in Catholic social doctrine talks about the importance of work and fair remuneration for work. This came out in 1891. It was an encyclical that was issued by Pope Leo XIII. We have Pope Leo XIV now. His predecessor, as far as name goes back to this document. And it's an encyclical. It's entitled Rerum Novarum. Rerum Novarum is an encyclical that simply means of new things. What happened at that time was the Industrial Revolution. And if you know anything about the Industrial Revolution, you saw that there was this revolution that began in England. It went to Western Europe. It came here in America, and everything changed. We went from an agricultural society to an industrial one. And people were taken advantage of. We're on the cusp of another revolution, and that's this AI revolution. But Pope Leo in this particular document had some excellent things to say about work and how personal property needs to be private. It needs to stay private. Capitalism, or we don't need to give away to socialism. We saw what happened with socialism in various countries where instead of it lifting everybody up, they got pushed down more, and the ruling class, of course, was lifted up. But this particular document emphasized fair wages. It spoke of the dignity of work and how important it is for a culture to dignify work again. Not having children work on the assembly line and not taking advantage of people, but giving moral restraints and allowing people to have dignity with their work. And a big part of this was emphasizing the importance of unions, of having unionization here and around the world so that people could make a decent living. Very basic things that we need to recover again. I want to go through with you in more detail this document because I think it has a lot of bearing on where we are today. And in the meantime, there's hope. There's hope. Have hope. So many on social media today, all they're doing is blaming each other. Blaming each other isn't going to bring any solutions. Solutions come when we recognize that there are good solutions and people get behind the solutions and we push for them to our government and to our culture and say, we can do better than this. I believe we can. We need to recover the dignity of work, and we'll go there the next time. But thank you for being with me today as I introduce this important area and this anxiety that has taken over in our world. There's something that we can do of a positive nature to make it better. Thank you very much.